On a late September afternoon in 2025, Washington, D.C. was rocked by an incident involving an Afghan man at a National Guard checkpoint. The man, whose motives were initially unclear, was quickly apprehended, but the event sent shockwaves through the nation's capital. The city, already on edge from a series of recent threats, found itself plunged into a state of heightened alert. The streets were soon filled with the sounds of sirens and the sight of emergency vehicles rushing to secure key locations. The atmosphere was tense, with citizens and officials alike wondering what this meant for the future. The White House quickly framed the attack as a broader threat, not just an isolated act. Officials were swift to link the incident to a larger narrative of internal and external dangers facing the nation. This framing was crucial in shaping public perception and justifying the subsequent actions taken by the administration. The press conferences were filled with stern warnings and calls for unity in the face of what was described as an ongoing and pervasive threat. President Trump addressed the nation, declaring a national emergency and citing internal enemies as a growing danger. His speech was laden with grave tones and urgent rhetoric, painting a picture of a country under siege from within. He emphasized the need for decisive action and the importance of national security, urging citizens to remain vigilant and supportive of the measures being put in place. This declaration granted him sweeping powers, setting the stage for a domestic military response. The executive orders signed in the following days expanded the authority of federal agencies and the military, allowing for a more robust and immediate reaction to perceived threats. The administration's actions were framed as necessary steps to protect the nation, though they also sparked significant debate and concern among various groups. Supporters saw this as a necessary step to restore order, while critics accused the president of bypassing legal norms. The country seemed to split into two camps: those who believed in the need for strong measures to ensure safety, and those who feared the erosion of civil liberties and democratic principles. Pro-Trump rallies were marked by fervent displays of patriotism, while protests against the administration's actions highlighted deep concerns about the direction in which the country was heading. The event became a justification for escalating federal control over cities. Law enforcement and military presence in urban areas increased dramatically, with patrols becoming a common sight. The administration argued that these measures were essential to prevent further attacks and maintain public order, but the heavy-handed approach also led to increased tensions and fears of an overreaching government. President Trump described the threat as a war from within, painting a picture of a nation on the brink. His speeches continued to emphasize the gravity of the situation, urging Americans to support the government's efforts to combat these internal threats. The media coverage was intense, with news outlets providing round-the-clock updates and analysis, further amplifying the sense of urgency and crisis. The national emergency was not just a response to one attack, it was the start of a larger campaign to assert federal control. The administration's strategy involved a series of coordinated actions aimed at strengthening national security and addressing what it saw as systemic vulnerabilities. This campaign was presented as a necessary evolution in the face of new and unprecedented challenges, though it also raised questions about the balance between security and freedom. This move would soon bring soldiers onto the streets of major urban centers. The deployment of the National Guard and other military units was a visible and controversial aspect of the administration's response. For many, the sight of soldiers in their cities was a stark reminder of the extraordinary times they were living in, and it sparked a wide range of reactions from support to fear and resistance. The declaration sparked a profound conflict over the military's role in American life. Public debates raged on television and social media, with passionate arguments on both sides. Some saw the military's involvement as a necessary measure to ensure safety and stability, while others viewed it as a dangerous overreach that threatened the very fabric of American democracy. Demonstrations and counter-demonstrations became a common sight, reflecting the deep divisions within the country. The president's actions were seen as a dramatic escalation, redefining the boundaries between military power and civilian life. The increased military presence in everyday settings led to numerous interactions between soldiers and civilians, some of which were tense and fraught with misunderstanding. The sight of barbed wire around public buildings and the frequent presence of armed personnel underscored the new reality that Americans were grappling with. The stage was set for a clash over the future of American governance and civil order. The events of late 2025 marked a turning point, with the nation facing fundamental questions about its identity and values. As the country moved forward, the decisions made in response to this crisis would have lasting implications for the balance between security and liberty, and for the nature of American democracy itself. President Trump convened top military leaders at the historic Quantico Marine Base, a site long associated with American strength and strategic planning. The atmosphere was tense, with heightened security and a sense of anticipation in the air as high-ranking officials arrived, aware that this meeting would be unlike any other. Inside, the president outlined his vision for confronting what he described as unprecedented internal threats, emphasizing the need for unity and decisive action. He spoke of a nation under siege, not from foreign adversaries, but from forces within its own borders. He described these so-called enemies within as a grave danger to the country's stability, urging the assembled military leaders to see their support as not just a professional obligation, but a patriotic duty. The president's words were carefully chosen to inspire loyalty and a sense of mission. His rhetoric was confrontational and uncompromising, asserting his authority as commander-in-chief and demanding unwavering loyalty from those in uniform. The message was clear: the military must stand with the president to defend the nation from internal chaos. By seeking to align the military with his personal agenda, the president began to blur the traditional lines between national duty and political loyalty, raising questions about the role of the armed forces in domestic affairs. The phrase, "enemy from within," quickly spread through news headlines, fueling a sense of crisis and uncertainty. For many Americans, it justified extraordinary measures and heightened security, while for others, it sparked fear and suspicion. The president's address laid the foundation for a series of actions that would soon follow, including the unprecedented mobilization of military forces for a domestic campaign. Troops began preparing for operations not overseas, but in American cities. Declaring urban centers as training grounds for these operations, the president shocked many observers and citizens alike, who watched in disbelief as military vehicles rolled through familiar streets. This moment marked a profound shift in the relationship between the government and its people, as the boundaries between civil society and military authority became increasingly blurred, leaving the nation at a crossroads. The president's orders turned rhetoric into reality, as the nation watched with bated breath. National Guard units were federalized, transforming the landscape of American cities overnight. Major cities with Democratic mayors saw military convoys, signaling a significant shift in federal policy. The sight of armored vehicles in urban environments was both startling and unprecedented. Deployments were precise, with troops from one state policing another, asserting federal power in a manner not seen in recent history. This move was intended to bring order, but also raise questions about states' rights and federal overreach. Soldiers established checkpoints and patrolled neighborhoods, often seen as an occupation by local residents. The presence of military personnel in residential areas created a sense of unease and tension. The mission was vague, with troops dismantling encampments and monitoring protests. Their role was not clearly defined, leading to confusion and frustration among both the troops and the civilians they were sent to oversee. In Portland, the Guard's arrival was viewed as an attempt to suppress dissent. The city, known for its vibrant protest culture, saw the deployment as a direct challenge to its values and autonomy. The federal troops enforced a specific order dictated by the White House, carrying out their duties with precision. However, the clarity of their mission did little to quell the growing unrest among the populace. Some welcomed the troops for security, while others saw them as an occupying force. The mixed reactions highlighted the deep divisions within the country, with some viewing the military presence as a necessary measure and others as an infringement on their freedoms. The deployments deepened divisions, creating new conflicts within cities. The presence of the National Guard, intended to restore order, instead became a flashpoint for further discord and confrontation. State and city officials fiercely opposed the National Guard's deployment. They argued the president overstepped his authority, violating federalism principles. Illinois Governor Pritzker denounced the move as unconstitutional. Legal challenges were filed to defend state sovereignty and protect citizens. In Oregon and California, local leaders refused to cooperate, creating chaos. The conflict highlighted the chasm between federal order and local governance. The clash left the public divided, watching competing visions of America collide. The National Guard's deployment came with a radical military policy overhaul. Defense Secretary Hegseth announced relaxed rules of engagement for domestic operations. President Trump signaled a zero-tolerance policy for disrespect toward troops. The military's role shifted from de-escalation to forceful response. Homelessness was treated as a public safety threat, not a social issue. Quick reaction forces were created for civil disturbances, blurring war and policing lines. Critics warned this mindset would lead to violence, altering military roles. The policies raised questions about military force against citizens. Civil liberties groups warned of assaults on free speech and due process. President Trump's war from within was justified by claims of rampant crime. However, official data showed falling crime rates in targeted cities. Los Angeles and San Francisco saw significant drops in murders. Portland and Chicago also reported fewer homicides. The data contradicted the president's crisis narrative. Critics accused him of manufacturing a crisis for authoritarian actions. The debate shifted from facts to perception, with fear outweighing data. The administration's narrative persisted, allowing military deployments to continue. The fear of crime became more influential than statistics. Military deployment in cities triggered intense legal battles. The Posse Comitatus Act restricts military use for domestic law enforcement. The Trump administration invoked the Insurrection Act to bypass this. Legal challenges led to conflicting court rulings across the country. A California judge ruled the use of troops in Los Angeles illegal. Similar rulings in Oregon blocked the president's orders. The legal fight continued, with the Supreme Court likely to decide. Public debate raged over democracy and civil liberties implications. A poll revealed a divided nation over the president's actions. The war from within opened a perilous chapter in American history.